You are in my shot.
The man turned. He was tall, sharp-featured, wearing a tuxedo that fit the way expensive things fit when money is old enough to stop announcing itself. He looked at her camera. He looked at her. He stepped aside without a word. Zara Ellison lowered her lens and went back to work. She was 3 hours into shooting the Seoul International Children's Charity Gala, and she had learned everything she needed to know about the room, who was performing generosity and who was actually feeling it, which conversations were real and which were transactions dressed in evening wear, where the light was honest and where it was flattering lies. She moved through the event the way she always moved through events, invisible and everywhere, her camera finding the moments that existed in the spaces between the posed ones. She was framing a wide shot of the auction when she felt someone beside her. "The woman in the blue dress," the voice said. "Third table from the left. She has been watching the children's performance for 20 minutes and she thinks nobody has noticed." Zara looked. The woman in the blue dress had her hands folded in her lap and her eyes were bright in a way that had nothing to do with the champagne and everything to do with the 7-year-old on the stage singing slightly off-key with complete commitment. Zara raised her camera and got the shot. She lowered it and looked at the man beside her. It was the tuxedo from earlier. "You have a good eye," she said. "You have a better one," he said. "Can I see?" She turned the camera around and showed him the back screen. He looked at it with the focused attention of someone who was actually looking and not performing interest, which was different and which she noticed. "The angle," he said. "You shot it slightly low. It makes the woman look like she is the one on the stage." She looked at the image. He was right. "Kwon Si-Jun," he said, and extended his hand. "I know who you are," she said, and shook it. "Zara Ellison. I'm the photographer your sister hired." "I know," he said. "I looked at the vendor list after you told me I was in your shot." She almost smiled. "And you came to find me anyway." "I came to apologize," he said. "I stayed because the conversation got interesting." She looked at him for a moment. He was not performing. That was the thing she kept noticing. He was just standing there, at his own family's charity gala, talking to the hired photographer like it was the most natural thing in the world and like nothing about the situation required management. "The apology is accepted," she said. "You can go back to your gala." "It's not really my gala," he said. "It's my sister's. I'm just here because my father expects it." "And what do you expect?" she said. He looked at her. Something shifted in his expression, small, surprised, the look of a man who had been asked a question nobody usually asked him. "I expect," he said slowly, "to stand near the terrace doors and count the minutes until I can leave without it being impolite." "How many minutes is that?" 45, usually." "Then you have 44 left," she said, and raised her camera again. He laughed. It was a real laugh, brief, unexpected, the kind that arrives before the person has decided to have it, and she photographed it without thinking, the way she photographed everything that was real before it disappeared. He stayed for the 40 minutes. They talked about the gala circuit and why people attended it and whether charitable giving that required a black tie dress code was still charitable giving or just expensive theater. They talked about his shipping company and her fine art series and the specific loneliness of being very good at something that other people did not fully understand. He made her laugh twice. She made him laugh 3 times. She counted. She always counted the things she was trying not to pay attention to. At 9:15 the event coordinator found her. "Ms. Ellison. Final group shot." She lowered her camera. She looked at Si-Jun. He was looking back at her with the expression of a man who had just remembered that 40 minutes was not enough time and was doing the calculation of what came next. She did the calculation faster. "It was a good conversation," she said. "It was," he said. "Can I?" "Good night, Mr. Quan," she said. She walked away. She packed her equipment in 12 minutes, which was faster than she usually packed because efficiency felt important suddenly. She did not look back across the room. She knew if she looked back she would see him looking, and if she saw him looking she would have to make a decision she had not finished thinking through yet. She left. In the car to the hotel she sat with her camera bag in her lap and looked out at Seoul and told herself it was one conversation and she had good conversations sometimes and that was all it was. She almost believed it. 8 months later, Harun called. Zara was in her Atlanta studio at 7 in the morning, editing the fine art series, when her phone rang with the sole number she had saved and never called. "Harun," she said. "Zara." Harun's voice was warm and careful in equal measure. "I have a proposition." "I'm listening." "Kwon Shipping Global's 40th anniversary. We need a photographer for the full week of events. Editorial, corporate, fine art, family. The budget is whatever you need it to be." A pause. "I want you specifically." Zara set down her editing pen. She looked at the wall of her studio, at the series in progress, at the image she had printed and pinned at eye level 8 months ago because something about it kept demanding to be looked at. A man at a charity gala, mid-laugh, unguarded, real. "Harun," she said. "Yes." "Does your brother know you're calling me?" A pause that lasted exactly long enough to be an answer. "He will," Harun said pleasantly. Zara looked at the photograph on her wall. She thought about her rule. She thought about 8 months of not thinking about 40 minutes, which was its own kind of thinking about it. "Send me the contract," she said. "Already in your email," Harun said. "You sent it before you called me." "I had faith," Harun said, and Zara could hear the smile in it, wide and knowing and entirely unapologetic. Zara hung up. She sat in her studio. She said to no one, "This is a terrible idea." Then she started packing her equipment. She called Derek from the airport. "I'm going back to Seoul," she said. "Back to Seoul," he repeated. "As in, back to the city where the billionaire you ghosted lives." "I didn't ghost him. I left a gala." "You packed your equipment in 12 minutes and didn't leave a card," Derek said. "That's a ghost, Zara." It was a professional exit. It was absolutely not a professional exit. A professional exit involves leaving your contact information with the client, which you did, and also possibly with the man you talked to for 40 minutes, which you did not. A pause. "How long has it been?" 8 months. "And Harun called you directly?" "Yes." "Which means he knows you're coming." Zara looked at the departures board. "Seoul. Boarding in 40 minutes. Probably," she said. "Zara." "Derek. Is this the one?" She was quiet for a moment. She picked up her camera bag. "I don't know yet," she said honestly. "That's the most you've said about anyone in 4 years," Derek said. "Get on the plane." She got on the plane.
The lobby of Kwon Shipping Global was the kind of space that told you everything about the person who built it without saying a word. Clean lines, no excess, nothing decorative that wasn't also structural. It communicated that the people who worked here were serious and that seriousness was the highest value the building recognized. Zara walked in at 9 a.m. with her camera bag on one shoulder and her rolling equipment case behind her, and her composure assembled the way she always assembled it before walking into something she had thought about more than she intended to. She saw him immediately. He was standing near the reception desk in a charcoal suit, hands in his pockets, with the contained stillness of a man who had been waiting for 8 months and had very good posture about it. He looked exactly like the photograph on her studio wall and exactly like the man at the gala and exactly like nothing she had prepared herself for adequately. She walked to him. She extended her hand. "Zara Ellison," she said. "I'm here for the anniversary shoot." He looked at her hand. He looked at her face. He shook her hand. "Kwon Si-Jun," he said. "Welcome back to Seoul, Ms. Ellison." The back to was deliberate. She heard it. She did not acknowledge it. "Thank you," she said. "Can someone show me the day one setup?" His assistant appeared from somewhere and began walking her toward the event floor, and she went with the assistant and did not look back. Behind her, Harun materialized at Si-Jun's elbow like a woman who had been standing exactly there all along. "Well," Harun said. "Don't," Si-Jun said. "I wasn't going to say anything." "You were about to say several things." "I was simply going to observe that she is exactly as you described her," Harun said. "Which means your memory is accurate, which means the last 8 months were not just nostalgia, which means—" "Harun." "I'm going," she said, already going, already smiling. Si-Jun looked at the elevator where Zara had just disappeared. He thought about the 40 minutes. He thought about the 12 minutes he had stood in the lobby this morning before 9 a.m. because he had arrived early and needed somewhere to be. He thought about 8 months of looking at a vendor list that had her name on it and a contact number that went to a photography agency and not to her directly. He went back to his office. He sat at his desk. He looked at Seoul. He thought, 5 days. He had 5 days to find out if it was the memory of one evening or something that existed outside of memory. He opened his laptop. He closed it. He opened it again. His assistant knocked. "Sir, the press event setup is ready for your review." "Tell them I'll be there in 10 minutes, he said. He was there in 4. Zara shot the press event for 3 hours and forgot about everything that wasn't the work, which was what the work always did for her and why she loved it with the specific love you have for things that save you from yourself. She moved through the corporate event space with the ease of someone who had been doing this for 8 years and had long since stopped being impressed by wealth or intimidated by the people who had it. She shot the executives, the press wall, the product displays. She got the wide establishing shots and then she went looking for the small true things that nobody was paying attention to because the small true things were always the images that lasted. She found a senior executive's young daughter who had been brought to the event sitting alone under a table reading a book with the complete absorption of a child who has decided that the adult world is deeply uninteresting. Zara lay flat on the floor and photographed her from below, the table above her like a ceiling, the child's face lit from the book's white pages. "That's going to be the best image from today." She looked up. Si-Jun was standing 2 feet away, looking at the back of her camera screen over her shoulder. She stood up. "You're doing it again," she said. "Appearing in your frame. Commenting on my work without being asked." "You showed me the screen," he said. "You looked at the screen before I showed you." He almost smiled. "The composition is exceptional," he said. "The table as a ceiling." The child's face lit from below. "It inverts the whole idea of what this event is supposed to be about." She looked at him. He was right again. She hated that he was right again. "Are you always at your own press events?" she said. "No," he said. "Then why are you at this one?" He looked at her steadily. "You know why," he said. She held his gaze for a moment. Then she picked up her camera and walked toward the next setup. "I have a shoot to finish, Mr. Quan," she said. "Si-Jun," he said. She kept walking. But something in her chest did something she told to stop immediately. That evening she video called Derek from the hotel. "He's been at every setup today," she said. "He's not subtle." "How not subtle?" "He told me he knows why he's there." Derek stared at her through the screen. "He said that. Directly. No preamble." "Zara." Derek leaned forward. "I need you to hear me clearly. A man who searched for you for 8 months, who told you directly why he showed up, who has apparently been at every single event today, that man is not collecting an experience. That man is terrified and doing it anyway." She looked at the Seoul skyline through her hotel window. "I know," she said quietly. "So what are you doing?" Derek said. "Deciding," she said. "How long does deciding take?" "As long as it takes," she said. "Good night, Derek." She hung up. She picked up her camera. She scrolled through the day's images until she found the one of Si-Jun at the gala, the one she had printed for her studio wall, and she looked at it for a long time. Then she put the camera down and went to sleep. Day 2 started with an argument. Not a loud argument. A quiet one, which was worse. She arrived at the internal staff celebration to find that a setup she had specifically requested, natural window light for the employee portraits, no additional flash equipment, had been overridden by the corporate communications team who had set up studio lighting rigs that would make every portrait look like a passport photo. She found Si-Jun's assistant. "Who authorized the lighting change?" she said. The assistant looked uncomfortable. The communications director felt. "I need to speak to the communications director," she said. The communications director was a man in his 50s who explained, with the patient condescension of someone who had been explaining things to people he considered junior for 30 years, that the studio lighting was standard corporate protocol. "I understand the protocol," Zara said. "I'm asking you to trust my professional judgment over the protocol. The window light will give you portraits that look like people. The studio rigs will give you portraits that look like ID cards. Our previous photographer always used. I'm not your previous photographer, she said pleasantly. The communications director looked at someone over her shoulder. She turned. Si-Jun was standing behind her. Take the rigs down, Si-Jun said to the communications director. The communications director blinked. Sir, the protocol. Ms. Ellison's professional judgment is why she was hired. Take the rigs down. The rigs came down. The communications director left. Zara looked at Si-Jun. I had it, she said. I know, he said. Then why? Because he was wasting your time and you have a shoot to run, he said simply. He looked at the window light falling across the setup area. It's better this way, he said. You were right. She looked at him for a moment. Thank you, she said. You don't have to thank me, he said. It was the correct decision. He walked away. She watched him go and thought about the photograph on her studio wall and the 40 minutes and her rule, and she thought, he is making this very difficult. Good, said something in her that she had not given permission to speak. She picked up her camera and went back to work.
The executive dinner was Harun's doing entirely, and everyone knew it and nobody said so. The invitation had appeared in Zara's hotel room as a printed card slid under the door, which was the kind of touch that was either charmingly old-fashioned or strategically deliberate, and Harun was absolutely capable of both. You are invited as my personal guest this evening. Not as the photographer. As a person. Wear something that has nothing to do with work. Harun. Zara read it twice. She looked at her suitcase. She had packed one dress because she always packed one dress on work trips, for precisely the kind of situation she told herself was not going to arise and which always arose. The dress was deep forest green, fitted, with a draped neckline and three-quarter sleeves. She put it on. She looked at herself in the mirror. She said, You are making choices, Zara Ellison. She went to dinner. The restaurant was on the 42nd floor of a building in Gangnam with a view of Seoul that was designed to make people feel that the city was a thing they could hold in their hands. The table was long and the guests were senior executives and their partners and Harun, who was seated at the far end wearing an expression of absolute innocence that convinced no one. Si-Jun was at the center of the table. The seat beside him was empty. Zara sat in it. He stood when she reached the table, which was old-fashioned and she noticed, and then he sat back down and looked at her for exactly 1 second before looking at the menu, and that 1 second contained more information than most people communicated in a full conversation. Harun is not subtle, Zara said. She has never tried to be, he said. Does it bother you? He looked up from the menu. That she seated you next to me? No. That she engineered the whole thing. He considered that. She booked you for the shoot, he said. I didn't ask her to. I didn't know she was going to. He paused. When she told me your name 2 days before you arrived, I sat very still for approximately 30 seconds and then I told her the hotel arrangements needed to be confirmed. That was all you said. That was all I said out loud, he said. She looked at him. He looked back. Around them the table filled with conversation and the evening began and they ate and talked with the other guests in the way of two people who were both capable of being present in a room while being primarily aware of each other. At 10 o'clock the other executives drifted toward the bar and she and Si-Jun were briefly alone at the long table with the Seoul skyline behind them and the remains of a very good dinner between them. Why did you leave? He said. No preamble. No easing into it. Just the question, direct, the way he did everything. She set her glass down. She had thought about how to answer this for 8 months. Because I knew what you would do if I stayed, she said. What would I have done? Exactly what you have been doing for 8 months, she said. He was quiet for a moment. Is that a bad thing? He said. She looked at him carefully. That depends on why you did it, she said. Men look for things for different reasons. Some men look because they want to find something. Some men look because they don't like losing things. And which do you think I am? I think, she said slowly, that you don't know yet. And I think that's what these 5 days are for. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he picked up his glass and looked at the city and said, That's the most honest thing anyone has said to me in recent memory. I don't know how to be anything else, she said. I know, he said. And the way he said it told her he had noticed this about her from the beginning and had been thinking about it since. Harun appeared from the bar area with the timing of a woman who had been watching from a distance and had decided the conversation had gone on long enough to be good and not so long as to become something she needed to rescue. Ready, she said to Zara. Zara stood. She looked at Si-Jun. Good night, Mr. Kwon, she said. Si-Jun, he said again. She walked away without responding. But she filed it. In the car back to the hotel, Harun sat beside her and said nothing for 3 whole minutes, which was a personal record. Then, well. He's honest, Zara said. He's terrifying when he's honest, Harun said. Most people find it cold. It's not cold. He just doesn't know how to perform warmth, so he stopped trying. When did he stop? Harun looked out the window. When our mother died, she said quietly. 4 years ago. She was the person he didn't perform for. When she was gone, she stopped. He packed it away somewhere. I've been waiting for someone to find it. Zara looked at the Seoul night passing outside the car window. She said nothing. But she thought about the photograph on her studio wall. The unguarded face. The real laugh. She thought, I already found it. I just haven't decided what to do with it yet. Hold still, Zara said. Not like that. Like you're not thinking about holding still. The elderly mailroom manager, Mr. O, had been sitting in front of her camera for 4 minutes trying to look natural, which was producing the specific stiffness of a man thinking about every muscle in his face simultaneously. Think about something that makes you happy, she said. Mr. O thought. His face changed immediately, opened, softened, became the face of a person rather than a subject. She got the shot. What were you thinking about? She said. My granddaughter, he said. She starts university next month. Tell me about her, Zara said, already moving to the next angle. He told her. She photographed him talking. The portraits were extraordinary and they both knew it, though Mr. O would not see them until the following week and would sit down when he did because nobody had ever taken a photograph of him that looked like that. Si-Jun appeared at the edge of the portrait area at 11 a.m. He did not interrupt. He stood and watched her work with the focused attention he gave everything, and she was aware of him the way you are aware of weather, not looking at it directly but feeling the pressure change. When Mr. O left, Si-Jun crossed to where she was reviewing images. You talked to him for 20 minutes, he said. I needed him relaxed, she said. You found out his granddaughter's name and her major and which university, he said. That's not technique. That's genuine interest. She looked up from her camera screen. Is there a difference? For most photographers hired for corporate shoots? Yes. She looked at him for a moment. I photograph people, she said. Not subjects. If I don't know who they are, the images are empty. He looked at the screen she was holding toward him. Mr. O, mid-sentence, face completely open, the specific dignity of a man who has worked in the same building for 30 years and has never been looked at this carefully. This one, Si-Jun said, pointing. This goes in the building. That's Harun's decision, she said. Harun will agree with me, he said. She turned the camera back and looked at the image. He was right. It was the best portrait she had taken in 2 years. You have a good eye, she said. It was what she had said at the gala. He looked at her. You said that to me before, he said. I know, she said. I meant it both times. Something moved across his face. She photographed it before she decided to, the way she photographed everything real before it disappeared. He looked at her camera. Did you just? The light was good, she said, and walked to the next setup. Behind her she heard him exhale, not quite a laugh, something closer to disbelief, and she allowed herself one small private smile that she aimed at the floor where nobody could see it. The family event was on day 4 and it changed things in the way that true things always change things, quietly, without announcing itself, in the space between one moment and the next. Harun had organized it at the Quan family residence, a house in Seongbuk-dong that was large without being showy, full of art that had been chosen by someone who loved it rather than someone who was investing in it. Zara arrived with her camera because the camera was how she saw the world, and she saw no reason to stop seeing clearly just because the situation had become something she was still deciding about. She photographed Harun and her mother in the garden, laughing about something with the easy warmth of two women who knew each other completely. She photographed Chairman Kwon holding court in the living room, telling a story with expansive gestures that made the circle around him lean in. She photographed the cousins and the family friends and the particular beauty of a family that had lost someone and was still choosing to gather. Then she saw Si-Jun. He was standing near the doorway to the garden, slightly apart from the nearest group, watching his father tell the story. And his face was doing something she had not seen it do before, a complicated, layered thing that was love and grief and something that looked like the specific exhaustion of a person who has been carrying a weight for so long they have forgotten what it felt like before the weight. She raised her camera before she made the decision to raise it. The frame found him. She pressed the shutter. She looked at the image on the back of her screen. She stood very still. It was the finest photograph she had ever taken. Later, after the dinner, after the family had moved into the sitting room and the evening had wound down into the comfortable quiet of people who belonged to each other, she was reviewing her images near the window when she felt him beside her. She did not pretend she didn't know he was there. She turned the camera screen toward him. He looked at the image. He looked at it for a long time. She watched him look at it, the way she had watched him look at the photograph of the child under the table, with the attention of someone who actually saw things. "That is who you were at the gala," she said quietly. He looked at the image for another moment. "I know," he said. "When did you stop letting people see it?" she said. He was quiet. The house moved around them, voices from the sitting room, someone laughing at something, the sound of a family being a family. "For years ago," he said. "Your mother," she said. He looked at her. "Harun told you." "She told me enough," Zara said. "The rest I could see." He looked back at the image. "She was the only person I didn't edit myself for," he said. "After she was gone, I didn't see the point in being unedited. It's easier to be the version people expect." "Easier," she said. "Not better." "No," he said. "Not better." They stood by the window and the house moved around them and the Seoul night pressed against the glass outside and neither of them spoke for a long time. Then she said, "I'm going to put this photograph in my series." He looked at her. "The fine art series. The one about people in moments of complete honesty." "Yes." He held her gaze. "Then it belongs there," he said. She nodded. She turned the camera back. She looked at the image one more time. She thought, "I have been decided since Atlanta. I just needed to see it for myself." She thought, "Not yet. One more day. You extended my hotel stay without asking me." Si-Jun looked up from his desk. Zara was standing in his office doorway without an appointment. His assistant was hovering apologetically behind her in the corridor, which meant she had walked past the assistant without stopping, which meant she had decided before she arrived that she was coming in regardless. "I did," he said. "You should have asked first." "You're right," he said. "Just that. No qualification, no defense." She stood in the doorway and looked at him. She had been prepared for a longer conversation and his immediate agreement had removed the structure of it. "Thank you," she said. "Will you stay?" he said. "I already told Harun I would." "I know," he said. "I wanted to hear you say it." She looked at him steadily. "You said that at the gala," she said. "When I said it was a good conversation. You wanted to hear me say it again." He said nothing for a moment. Then, "You remember that?" "I remember everything about that evening," she said. "That's why I left." He stood up from his desk. Not with urgency, slowly, deliberately, the way he did everything. He walked around the desk and stopped a professional distance from her, which in the context of everything between them was simultaneously correct and insufficient. "Tell me about the rule," he said. She looked at him. "What rule?" "The one that made you leave. Harun mentioned it." "Harun talks too much." "Harun talks exactly the right amount," he said. "Tell me." She leaned against the door frame. She considered him, the lean angular face, the dark eyes that gave nothing away until they gave everything, the suit that fit like a decision. She had been deciding for 8 months and 5 days. She decided to tell him. I have spent my career moving through rooms full of wealthy men who treat black women as an experience, she said. Something rare and interesting and worth having for the story of having it. They are not cruel about it. They are not even conscious of it most of the time. But I have an instinct for it now that has never been wrong. She paused. At the gala I felt that instinct start to move and I did not wait to find out if it was right. I ran before I could be collected. He was very still. And now, he said. Now I have been here 5 days and you have not once made me feel like a story, she said. Which is either because my instinct was wrong or because you are more careful than the others. Or, he said, because it isn't what it is. Men who collect experiences do not search for 8 months, she said. I told myself that on the plane. I'm still telling myself that. Is it working? She looked at him for a long moment. Somewhat, she said. He almost smiled. I will take somewhat, he said. You should, she said. It's more than you had yesterday. She pushed off the door frame and straightened. I have a shoot this afternoon, she said. I know, he said. I'll be there. I know, she said. You've been at every single one. I have, he said, without apology. She shook her head. She left. In the elevator she pressed the lobby button and looked at her reflection in the mirrored doors and said very quietly, somewhat is a lie, Zara. You know that. She knew that. Chairman Quan arrived that afternoon without announcement, which was how he always arrived because advance notice gave people time to prepare and he preferred to see things as they actually were. Zara was setting up for executive portraits in the main boardroom when the door opened and he walked in. She recognized him from the family event, the bearing, the careful eyes, the specific way of moving through a room that belonged to men who had built things from very little and never forgot it. Ms. Ellison, he said. I have been hearing about your work. Good things, I hope, she said, adjusting her light stand without stopping. Exceptional things, he said. He sat down in one of the boardroom chairs, not the portrait chair, an observer's chair, the chair of a man who had decided to watch. My son tells me your portraits of the staff are the finest photography this building has ever seen. Your son is generous, she said. My son is precise, Chairman Kwon said. He does not use words like finest carelessly. She looked at him. He was watching her with the specific attention of a man who was mapping a terrain and calling it conversation. Would you like to be photographed, Chairman Kwon? She said. I would like to understand something, he said. Ask, she said. You came back, he said. My daughter called you and you came back. I would like to know why. She set down the light stand. She looked at him directly, the way she looked at everything, without performance, without the softening that powerful people often expected from people who needed things from them. Because I am a professional and the contract is significant and the work is interesting, she said. And, he said. That is my answer, Chairman Kwon. He looked at her for a moment. Something moved in his expression, a small recalibration, the look of a man encountering something he did not expect. He stood. My son, he said carefully, has a responsibility to this company and to this family that is larger than any individual choice. I understand that, she said. I want to make sure you understand it clearly, he said. She held his gaze. Chairman Kwon, she said, with the pleasant tone she used for everything that required patience, I came here to take photographs. Whatever you are implying is a conversation for a different room with different people. If you would like your portrait taken, I am available for the next 40 minutes. Otherwise, I have work to do. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, Si-Jun was right. You are exceptional. He left. Zara stood in the boardroom alone for a moment. Then she picked up her light stand and continued setting up. That evening she called Derek. His father came to the shoot, she said. To be photographed. To warn me off, she said. Derek was quiet for 3 seconds. What did you say? I told him it was a conversation for a different room and offered to take his portrait. Derek made a sound that was half laugh, half something more serious. Zara. What? The father showed up personally. Do you understand what that means? Hiding you. She sat with that. "Good night, Derek," she said quietly. "Good night," he said. "Zara, let yourself have this one." She hung up. She sat in the Seoul night and thought about a man who had searched for 8 months and had not hidden her from his father and had said, "I wanted to hear you say it," with the specific honesty of someone who had stopped performing warmth and was just telling the truth instead. She thought, one more day. Harun took her to the Han River on day 6. Just the two of them, no cameras, no corporate events, no schedule. They walked along the riverside path in the early afternoon, the water moving beside them, Seoul spread on both banks, the kind of clear day that made the city look like something painted rather than built. "I should tell you something," Harun said. "About your brother," Zara said. "About why I called you specifically." Harun was quiet for a moment. "Si-Jun told me about the gala 3 months after it happened. Not immediately. He is not a person who tells things immediately. But 3 months later, on a Sunday, we were having dinner and he described you for 20 minutes without realizing he was doing it." Zara kept walking. "He said you had an eye that saw things most people walked past," Harun continued. "He said you told him he was in your shot and then showed him the back of your camera without being asked. He said you made him laugh 3 times in 40 minutes. She paused. "He counted. He told me the number." Zara looked at the river. "I found you because I looked for you," Harun said. He had looked through every official channel and hit walls because you work through an agency and your personal contact is protected. "I found you because I know people who know people and I was determined." She paused. "I booked you for the shoot because I wanted him to have the chance to find out if it was real or just the memory of one good evening." "And?" Zara said. "And I think you already know the answer to that," Harun said. "The question is whether you are going to let yourself act on it." They walked in silence for a while. A couple passed them with a dog. A child on a bicycle rang a small bell. The river moved. "He told me your mother died 4 years ago," Zara said. "He told you that?" Harun said quietly. "Yes." Harun was quiet for a moment. "She was the center," she said finally, "of the family. Of him especially. She was the person he was completely himself with, and when she was gone she stopped. He became very good at being the CEO. He became very good at the blueprint. He became very competent and very alone, and he would tell you he was fine and mean it in the way that people mean fine when they have forgotten what better feels like." Zara said nothing. "That evening at the gala," Harun said, "I watched him from across the room. I didn't know who you were yet. I just saw my brother laughing, actually laughing, for the first time in longer than I could remember. And then you were gone and he was standing in the middle of the room looking at the door you had left through, and I thought," she paused, "I thought, whoever that was just reminded him that he is still in there somewhere." Zara stopped walking. Harun stopped beside her. They stood at the river railing and looked at the water. "Why are you telling me this?" Zara said. "Because you deserve to make a fully informed decision," Harun said. "And because my brother would never tell you any of it himself. Not because he is hiding it. Because he doesn't know how to offer himself as a reason for someone else's choice. He would rather be chosen without asking." Zara looked at the Han River and thought about a man who had searched for 8 months without asking to be found. Who had stood in his own lobby with very good posture. Who had said, "I wanted to hear you say it and I will take somewhat," and had not hidden her from his father. "Decide before you get on the plane," Harun said, which was what she had said in the car after the dinner and which she was apparently willing to repeat until it landed. "You are not subtle," Zara said. "I am extremely subtle," Harun said. "You just pay close attention." Zara almost laughed. She looked at the river one more moment. Then she turned back toward the path. "Come on," she said. "Show me the rest of it." Harun smiled and fell into step beside her. That night Si-Jun called her. She was in her hotel room editing the day's images when her phone rang with his name on the screen. She looked at it for 2 rings. She answered. "Ms. Ellison," he said. "It's almost midnight," she said. "I know. I'm sorry. A pause. He was not a man who paused. "I wanted to ask you something." "Ask," she said. "Tomorrow," he said. "Your last day. I would like to show you something that isn't on the schedule. In the morning, before the final shoot. 1 hour. It requires getting up early. She closed her laptop. How early? 5:30, he said. 5:30, she repeated. I know. I'll have a car at the hotel at 5:15. She looked at the Seoul skyline through her window. She thought about Harun saying decide before you get on the plane. She thought about Derek saying let yourself have this one. She thought about the photograph on her studio wall and the 40 minutes and 8 months and the specific unbearable honesty of a man who had forgotten how to perform warmth and was telling the truth instead. 5:15, she said. Don't be late. I won't be, he said. A pause. Thank you, Ms. Ellison. Zara, she said. A silence that lasted exactly long enough to matter. Good night, Zara, he said. She hung up. She sat in her hotel room in Seoul and pressed her phone against her chest and said to the ceiling, very quietly, you are so decided it is embarrassing. She set her alarm for 5 a.m. He took her to Namsan. The car was at the hotel at 5:13, which meant he had left wherever he was before 5 to be certain of not being late, which she noticed and did not comment on. She got in and he was already there, in dark jeans and a simple charcoal coat, no suit, no corporate armor, and he looked like the man from the rooftop conversation and the gala and the photograph on her wall. Where are we going? She said. You'll see, he said. I generally like to know where I'm going, she said. I know, he said. This is the exception. She looked at him. He looked back. She settled into the seat. The car drove through the empty early morning Seoul streets, the city quiet in the way cities are quiet only in the hour before they wake up, not silent but holding its breath. They drove to the base of Namsan and then they walked up through the park in the cold pre-dawn air, her camera bag on her shoulder because she had brought it without being asked and he had not asked why. At the top, at the observation deck, Seoul was spread below them in every direction, the Han River a dark ribbon through the lights, the Gangnam Towers to the south, the older city to the north, everything. They stood at the railing and watched the sun come up. It was not a fast sunrise. It arrived in stages, the dark going dark blue, then blue-gray, then a thin line of amber at the horizon expanding slowly into the full gold of a clear Seoul morning. The city changed as the light changed, becoming more itself with each degree of brightness. She photographed it. She photographed the city and the light and at one point, without turning her head, she shifted the camera slightly and photographed him watching it, his face in the new morning light, quiet and open and present in the way she had seen only twice before, at the gala and at the family event. Why here? She said. My mother used to bring me here, he said. Before the company. Before everything. She said you should see the thing you are building from outside it sometimes, so you remember what it is for. He looked at the city. I haven't been here since she died. She lowered her camera. Why today? She said. He turned and looked at her. Because you leave tomorrow, he said. And I wanted to show you something real before you go. She held his gaze. The morning light was catching the city below them and the cold air was moving between them and Seoul was doing everything it could. Si-Jun, she said. Yes, he said. I have a rule, she said. I told you about it. You did, he said. You have passed the rule, she said. I want you to know that. He looked at her. Something moved across his face that was not the almost smile. It was the real one, the gala laugh's quieter cousin, the expression of a man receiving something he was not certain he would receive. And, he said. And I live in Atlanta, she said. And you live in Seoul and run an $11 billion shipping company. And your father came to my shoot yesterday to remind me of that. My father, he stopped. His jaw tightened. What did he say? He said you have responsibilities larger than individual choices, she said. He was not wrong. He was not right either, Si-Jun said, and the quietness of it was more definitive than if he had been loud. She looked at him. Are you sure about that? She said. Because I need you to be sure. Not performing sure. Actually sure. He turned to face her fully. I spent 14 years building to a blueprint that was handed to me, he said. I have been precise and correct and I have not made a single major decision for myself in 14 years. He paused. I am telling you that I searched for you for 8 months because something in that 40 minutes was more real than anything I had built in the previous 14 years, and I needed to know if it existed outside of memory. He paused again. It does. I am sure. She looked at him in the Seoul morning light for a long moment. Then she said, "Okay." "Okay," he said. "Don't make me say it twice," she said. He looked at her. The smile arrived, the full one, the real one, the one from the gala that had made her photograph it instinctively because real things had to be captured before they disappeared. She raised her camera and captured it. "You photographed that," he said. "I photograph everything real," she said. "You know that by now." He reached out and, carefully, with the deliberateness of a man making a decision, tucked a strand of her hair back that the morning wind had moved across her face. She went very still. His hand stayed at her face for a moment, just at her temple, and then he lowered it. "Come back," he said. "After Atlanta. Come back." She looked at him. "You come to Atlanta first," she said. "My world. My terms. Then we talk about what comes next." "Atlanta," he said. "When?" 3 weeks, she said. "And you come yourself. Not your assistant. Not a car. You." 3 weeks, he said. "Myself." She nodded. She turned back to the railing and looked at Seoul in the full morning light, the city completely awake now, moving and alive and indifferent in the way cities are when important things are happening inside them. She thought, "I have decided." She thought, "I decided a long time ago." She raised her camera and photographed the city, and he stood beside her, and they watched Seoul become itself in the morning, and neither of them said anything else because everything that needed saying had been said. The final shoot was the best work she had done all week. She arrived at Kwon Shipping Global at 9 a.m. for the last time and shot the anniversary closing event with the specific energy of someone who has resolved something and can now be completely present in the work. She got the grand group photographs and the executive portraits and the building exterior in the morning light, and then she went looking for the small true things one last time. She found Haroon arranging flowers in the event space, not because it was her job but because she wanted to, and she photographed her doing it, absorbed and unself-conscious, the way people look when they are doing something they love without an audience. Haroon looked up and saw the camera. "Don't you dare put that in the series," she said. "Too late," Zara said. Haroon pointed at her. "I want approval rights." "You don't get approval rights," Zara said pleasantly. "I got you this job. And I am doing this job exceptionally. We're even." She lowered the camera. "Thank you, Haroon." Haroon lowered her hand. Her expression did something complicated and warm. "Don't thank me," she said. "Just don't disappear this time." "I'm not disappearing," Zara said. "I'm going home. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Yes," Zara said. "Last time I left to avoid something. This time I'm leaving to go somewhere. That's different." Haroon looked at her for a moment. Then she smiled, wide, genuine, the warmth that Si-Jun had packed away finding its full expression in his sister. "Good," she said simply. Zara picked up her camera and went back to work. Si-Jun came to find her at noon. She was doing final detail shots of the anniversary installation in the lobby, a display of 40 years of Kwon shipping, photographs and artifacts, and a timeline that ran the length of one wall. She was photographing a section of the timeline when he appeared beside her. "How is it?" he said. "The installation or the shoot?" "Both." "The installation is well designed," she said. "Whoever curated it understood that the story of a company is really the story of the people inside it." She moved to the next section. "The shoot is done. I have everything I need." "Good," he said. He looked at the timeline. "My grandfather started with one cargo vessel," he said. "One. He mortgaged everything he had for it. And now 412 vessels," he said. 12 countries. 40 years. "That's a real thing," she said. "It is," he said. And the way he said it was not the pride of possession but something more complicated, the acknowledgement of what something cost and who paid for it and what you owed to that. She photographed the timeline section in front of them, the earliest photograph in the display, a young man standing on the deck of a small cargo vessel, squinting into the light, the sea behind him. Your grandfather, she said. My grandfather, he said. She looked at the photograph in the display and then at the image she had just taken of it and then at Si-Jun beside her. She thought about blueprints. She thought about buildings you choose versus buildings you inherit. You could do something different, she said. With the blueprint. You know that. He looked at her. What do you mean? I mean the blueprint is the foundation, she said. It's not the ceiling. You're allowed to build above it. He was quiet for a moment. My father. Your father built something extraordinary from one vessel, she said. He would not have done that if he had only ever done what was expected of him. He looked at the display. He looked at his grandfather's photograph. He looked at Zara. You see things, he said. I told you, she said. It's the job. It's not the job, he said. It's you. She held his gaze. Then she capped her lens. I'm done, she said. I'm going to pack the equipment and check out and my flight is at 9. I know, he said. Walk me to the lobby, she said. He walked her to the lobby. They stood at the entrance while the car was called and her equipment was loaded and the afternoon soul light came through the glass doors and made everything look like a painting of itself. 3 weeks, she said. 3 weeks, he said. Atlanta. She looked at him. Si-Jun. When you come ready to be in my world completely. Not a visit. Not a sight trip. My world. My studio. My city. My people. All of it. All of it, he said. She extended her hand. He looked at her hand. He looked at her face. He shook her hand, and held it 1 second longer than necessary, which was the first time he had done that, and which contained something that a handshake was not designed to contain. She got in the car. She did not look back because she did not need to. She knew he was watching. She always knew. On the flight home she slept for 4 hours, which was the first real sleep she had gotten all week, and woke up somewhere over the Pacific feeling clear in the way you feel when something has been decided and the decision was right. She opened her camera and went through the week's images one by one. The child under the table. Mr. O talking about his granddaughter. Harun arranging flowers. Chairman Kwon holding court. The Han River at dawn from the Namsan deck. The anniversary timeline. Seoul waking up in the morning light. And Si-Jun. Through the week. At the press event, profile view, looking at something she was photographing with the attention of a man who saw things. At the family event, watching his father, unguarded and real. At Namsan, in the full morning light, the real smile arriving on his face like something returning from somewhere. She stopped on that last image. She looked at it for a long time. She thought about what Harun had said on the Han River walk. She reminded him that he is still in there somewhere. She thought, I didn't remind him. He remembered himself. She thought, that is the difference. She closed the camera. She looked out the airplane window at the dark ocean below. She thought about 3 weeks. About her studio and her city and Derek's face when she showed up and told him everything. About the image she was going to print large and put at the end of the series, the last image, the one about arriving somewhere honest. She thought about a man standing in a lobby at 9 a.m. with very good posture, who had come himself and not sent anyone in his place, and what it meant that the first thing he had ever done for her was exactly the thing she had asked for. She closed her eyes. She slept the rest of the way home. Atlanta received her the way it always received her, with heat and noise and the specific familiarity of a city that knew her name. Derek was at the airport. She had not asked him to be. He was simply there, leaning against his car in the arrivals lane with 2 coffees and the expression of a man who had been thinking about this moment for a week. Well, he said, handing her a coffee. Well, she said. That's not an answer. It's all you're getting in the arrivals lane, she said. Drive. He drove. She drank her coffee and looked at Atlanta moving past the windows and felt the specific solidity of being home, the way her own city had a weight to it that other places didn't, the weight of knowing exactly where you stood in it. His coming in 3 weeks, she said. Derek said nothing for exactly 4 seconds, which was Derek's version of an explosion. His coming here, he said. To Atlanta. To my studio. I told him to come himself. No assistant, No car service, just him. And he agreed. He said 3 weeks and myself, she said. Without hesitation. Derek was quiet for another moment. Then, Zara. I know. Do you? Because I want to make sure you actually know. He looked at the road. You have a rule. You have had that rule for 6 years. In 6 years no man has passed it. Not even close. I know, she said. He passed it. Yes. And his father came to the shoot to warn you off, and he didn't hide you, and he took you to Namsan at 5:30 in the morning, and he is coming to Atlanta in 3 weeks. Derek. I'm just listing the facts. The facts are noted, she said. Can you please just drive? He drove. She looked out the window. After a while she said, quietly, he counted the laughs, Derek. At the gala. He told Harun I made him laugh 3 times. He counted. Derek said nothing. I counted too, she said. I counted the things I was trying not to pay attention to. I counted his laughs. I counted the moments he was real. I have been counting since that evening. She paused. I don't count things that don't matter to me. I know, Derek said softly. So, she said. So, he said. He reached over and squeezed her shoulder once, the way he had since they were children, the specific language of siblings who know each other completely. I need to clean my apartment before he comes, he said. Because I am absolutely meeting this man. She laughed, real, full, the laugh that arrived without being decided on. You are not meeting him on the first visit. I am absolutely meeting him on the first visit. I am the brother. It is my right and my duty. Derek. I will be respectful, he said. I will also be thorough. I know, she said. That's what I'm afraid of. He grinned. She shook her head. She drank her coffee. Outside the window Atlanta moved through its afternoon, familiar and warm and entirely hers. She spent the first week home doing the work that had accumulated in her absence and sleeping properly for the first time in 10 days and going to the lakefront at 6 in the morning the way she always went when she needed to think about something clearly. She thought about the series. About where the images from Seoul fit into it and how they changed it and whether the series was now about something it hadn't been about before. She thought the answer was yes. The series had been about black women in moments of complete solitude and complete power, and it was still about that, but it was also now about the thing that happened when a person who had been completely alone for a long time encountered another person who saw them clearly and stayed anyway. She rearranged the series on her studio wall 3 times before it was right. When it was right she stood back and looked at it. The images moved through the wall, the women she had photographed over 2 years, alone in sunlit rooms and on empty streets and at windows and in gardens, each of them in some moment of interior truth that the camera had found and held. And at the end, the last 2 images, the elderly woman in the sunlit room, looking at something outside the frame with complete interior peace, and beside her, the image of Si-Jun at the family event, watching his father with the complicated love of a man beginning to understand something about himself. She looked at those 2 images side by side for a long time. She thought, that is right. That is exactly right. She sent the series to her gallery contact in New York. 3 days later the gallery called and offered her a solo show. She sat in her studio for a long time after that call. Then she called Derek. The gallery called, she said. Which gallery? She told him. He was silent for 5 seconds. Zara. I know. That's the gallery. I know, Derek. That is the gallery you have been working toward for 4 years. I know, she said, and her voice did something at the end that she let it do because Derek was the person she did not have to manage herself for. When? He said. They want the show in 4 months, she said. The series as it stands plus whatever I add between now and then. And the Seoul images are the center of it, she said. Derek was quiet for a moment. Then, the photograph of him is going to be in the show. Yes, she said. In a gallery in New York. Yes. Have you told him? She looked at the studio wall. At the image of Si-Jun, unguarded, real, the most honest photograph she had ever taken of another person. Not yet, she said. He comes in 10 days. Tell him in person, Derek said. That was my plan, she said. Zara. His voice was careful. How do you think he will respond? She looked at the image. She thought about a man who had stood at a family event window and said, "Then it belongs there," when she told him the photograph was going in the series. A man who had spent 14 years behind a blueprint and was beginning to understand the difference between building to a plan and building to a truth. I think he will understand, she said. I think he will be the first person who ever has. Okay, Derek said softly. Okay.
If this story has you hooked, you won't want to miss what comes next. Part 2 is on the way. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. The best is yet to come.